Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. It's Akiziel here, and today I'll be reacting to Vampire the Masquerade: The Clans All You Need to Know and More by TheBurgerkrieg. Sorry it's taken me so long to get to this, and for the content drought again, I've actually gone into a hole playing, well, down the Pal World rabbit hole lately. And that's where the last several days went. But back on track. This one was requested quite a while ago, actually. And as always, I highly recommend you, and that if you don't know about Burger Krieg already, you should check out his channel. He makes awesome stuff. The videos that he has done, both lore videos about World of Darkness, and other videos, such as Philosophy I've seen him do a few of, are really fun to watch and really informative. And without further ado, let's get into it.
So a lot of people have used the past 2 years of this slowly ending global situation to learn something new, useful, and interesting. While this was going on, I was reading a lot of Vampire the Masquerade lore. Now, this is one of the biggest role-playing games in the entire world. It is played traditionally at the gaming table, but it is also immensely popular in LARP. It has become such a major cornerstone of the vampire genre that it gets referenced in persiflage movies and shows like What We Do in the Shadows. And really the main
imagining people playing, well, LARPing a tabletop game, such as Vampire the Masquerade, reminds me a bit of those people who like to LARP Dungeons and Dragons and decide to make, shall we say, props for it, and sometimes get a bit too carried away when using those props.
Question when coming up with any piece of vampire fiction is, what are the vampires going to be like in this particular work? Almost every culture in the world has some form of vampire myth, sometimes even several. And with how long this kind of creature has been a massive feature of the cultural zeitgeist, there are countless renditions by countless creatives, so there are so many options to choose from. Not to mention, you can just make new shit up. The answer Vampire the Masquerade gave,
like, for example, well, there's if I remember correctly, that the Chinese vampires, like in the lore of our in Chinese mythology, that if I remember correctly, they don't suck blood; they instead suck out your chi, which is your life force, and if I remember correctly, they can smell your breath, and that's how they find you. So it's like, if you're hiding from a Chinese vampire, I guess try to hold your breath.
To this question was yes. There are a total of 13 clans in Vampire the Masquerade and a whole bunch of bloodlines that we're not going to talk about today, and they all have different attributes and abilities because they are descended of the 13 different antediluvian vampires. These are famously the vampires of the third generation, and while it is not clear that these are the only vampires of the third generation that ever existed, they are the only 13 ones that survived the Flood, meaning they were the only ones that were able to procreate. This is a very cool fact about vampire lore, is that it's often ambiguous and contradictory, which not only gives it a certain mystique, but also makes it very forgiving to run, because nothing is truly completely set in stone, aside from like the most fundamental details. Clans are kind of your ethnicity as a vampire, or kindred as they prefer. In practice, this means that you share certain physical traits with other members of your clan. Certain personality attributes are a lot more frequent. You have been brought into the night through a similar cultural lens, and you probably have very strong connections mostly to other members of your clan. And yeah, look, listen, I know that this isn't how ethnicity really works. It's an arbitrary socially constructed category of categories that is used in anthropology. However, it is the analogy that tracks best for what a vampire clan is. The thing is, just
like how if you're a part of Clan Nosferatu, you're gonna be an ugly creature, usually with features reminiscent of Count Orlok, from the movie Nosferatu.
Just like with ethnicity, every individual is still fundamentally their own person with their own personality, their own goals, abilities, and ambitions. So a given character can be pretty much anything that you want them to be. They don't have to agree with the loose, shared ideals and cultural norms of their given clan. Clans tend to turn, or as they call it, embrace, certain specific types of people, but you don't become that type of person by being embraced into the clan. That's not how this relationship of causation works.
Like, I've been told that, for example, in the comments of when I was still doing a Vampire the Masquerade playthrough, which I do need to get back to that at some point, actually. I'm sorry. Yeah, I've taken so long hiatus from that, but in the comments it was mentioned that Clan Brujah tends to be full of counterculture people, such as bikers, pirates, etc.
So ultimately, you will find every category of person in every given clan. Of course, you will be affected by the prejudices that other people may or may not hold about your particular clan, which is something that, unfortunately, very closely tracks with ethnicity. Every clan also has a bane, a particular vampiric weakness that affects them. Very important though, no matter what clan you are, the sun will fuck you up. Vampiric society is roughly organized along three major governments or ideologies called sects. The Camarilla is the biggest and most influential of all of them, where most campaigns are set. They're an old-school feudalistic society that clearly delineates and illustrates the ranks and positions and social order that they expect everyone to adhere to, and they see themselves as the sole legitimate government of all kindred. The Anarchs are an ultimately very ideologically diverse group that at some point said, hang on, we actually don't like this thing where we just are ruled by the elders of our clans all the way up to the Antediluvians. Antediluvians, the very existence of which the Camarilla denies, by the way. So they did the Anarch Revolt a while back, and were mostly crushed by the forces of the Camarilla and the Human Inquisition. The Sabbat was kind of the ISIS of the Anarch Revolt. They became a very powerful organization dedicated religiously to the jihad, which is the process of the younger generations destroying the elders so they can gain freedom from their rule and then rule humanity in turn. And
if I remember correctly as well, because this is also what I heard about the Sabbat and the Anarchs, that the Anarchs want to return to the time before the Camarilla, when vampires ruled as essentially royalty and humans served under them as their subjects. And, well, that's not exactly gonna work anymore, considering how heavily humans outnumber vampires, and the fact that, regardless of how powerful most vampires are, a shotgun blast to the face is still going to be devastating for them. Although some of them are going to get crazy powerful, like the Antediluvians, and who, one of them needed to have, essentially the sun dropped on him twice before he died. And the Sabbat, if I remember correctly, vampire supremacists want to go even further than just ruling over the kind, and that being the humans, and going as far as humans are nothing but livestock, not even subjects that you lord over. but they're just food.
Even though they do want to rule the world openly, they still stick to the Masquerade, which is a rule that kind of everyone adheres to because they know that if humans find out vampires exist on a large scale again, they will, like, kill most of them again. I will now give you an overview of all the 13 different vampire clans, and instead of ordering them alphabetically, I have ordered them by relevance in terms of how likely you are to get in touch and how important they are going to be in a standard Vampire the Masquerade campaign, also called a chronicle. We will start with the 3 patrician clans of the Camarilla.
I'm going to guess that one of the 3 most important that he's going to mention will be, I think, was it the Toreadors, or is that they're really charismatic and charming? Or am I I might be mistaken.
Distinction that is informal and mostly relevant to people who are interested in large-scale international Camarilla politics, because these are the 3 clans that between them hold the most princedoms, aka most of the cities are ruled by these 3 clans. Keep in mind once again that there are princes of every clan in various different cities around the world, and also any given member of a clan can be part of any given type of government or institution in the world of vampires. The grandiose and powerful clan Ventrue, also known as the Blue Bloods, or the Clan of Kings, represents the aristocratic Machiavellian type of vampire with access to vast wealth. Throughout history, they have occupied the position of pragmatic rulers of worldly matters, be that as knights during the medieval era or wealthy industrialists today. And they do in fact see themselves as the rightfully ruling clan over all the other vampires, because what would the rabble do without their guidance? Even to this day, a significant portion of new embraces into the Clan of Kings come.
This is kind of reminding me of the Hermetic Order, or in his video about the traditions where they were just like, just give us all the magic instead of just representing one.
From actual, like, real-world nobility. In the old world, more so than the new, for obvious reasons, aristocrats tend to have very big bank accounts and a sense of decorum, which are 2 things that the Ventrue really care about. They often embrace successful business people, or people who they reckon have the potential to become very successful business people, but also stalwart figures in military or law enforcement positions that demonstrate good leadership and administrative skills. Before the embrace actually happens, there's usually a prolonged interview process, which obviously the intended recruit knows nothing about. They just think they're meeting very frequently with a very peculiar business partner that has taken a strange interest in them. This is then followed by intense and comprehensive coaching, some might call it micromanaging, to instruct the new arrival in the ways of the clan and the ways of the Camarilla. The clan has access to the disciplines Dominate, which is mind control, Fortitude, which is supernatural toughness, and Presence, which is incredible allure and charisma, making them very powerful social characters that are rather difficult to take down because of their physical and mental resilience.
So it was Ventrue I was thinking of with the charisma.
Between you and me, though, the Ventrue only need one discipline, and it's called money. The Ventrue clan bane is their rarefied tastes. Every kindred knows that not all blood is created equal, and the Ventrue can stomach only the finest caviar. Every Ventrue has a particular type of person that they like to drink blood from, and they have immense difficulty drinking blood from people who do not have that attribute. This attribute can be effectively anything, so long as it isn't common. It could be twins, it could be vegans, it could be morbidly obese people, it could
as long as it isn't common. I guess that one depends where you are, because in certain places of the world, morbidly obese people are quite common.
Be people who can do calculus in their head good. It could be morbidly obese vegan twins who can do calculus in their head good. Every clan also has a compulsion, which is a particular neurosis that their beast, their vampiric side, will every once in a while really try to drive at the forefront of their mind. For the Ventrue, this is arrogance. They need to rule. They need to be in charge. They need people to obey their commands. The Ventrue antediluvian is called, drumroll please, Ventrue. And not only is there very little known about him at all, but also officially, in keeping with Camarilla policy, Clan Ventrue denies his existence. Evidence suggests, however, that he went to India after the destruction of the first city in the flood, because basically most of the clan's ancient history takes place in India. Some notable Ventrue include Fiorenzo Savona, who, despite being rather young, is a very influential figure in the inter-city connections, especially in Central America. Mithras, who, yes, is the sun god Mithras, which is brilliant, because if anyone asks you why you are only out at night, you can just tell them that you've been hauling the sun across the sky. And Lucind, a powerful...
Well, I'm pretty sure he told someone you've been hauling the sun across the sky. They probably think you're crazy or think it's a fun joke.
Justicar dedicated solely to her mission of eradicating the worst and most dangerous enemies of the Camarilla. The gorgeous and creative Clan Toreador, also known as the Roses or the Clan of Vanity, represents the highly seductive, erotic type of vampire with an impeccable sense of style. They are practically in love with human civilization and culture, seeing themselves as the ultimate arbiters of what is based and what is cringe. Because their creative sparks tend to disappear over the centuries, they ultimately often take up the roles of patrons of the art, so they're all in the entertainment industry. Consequently, Toreador are primarily embraced from three major groups. Artists of all stripes and definitions, from sculptors to writers to figure skaters. Notable connoisseurs of art, like agents, critics, or investors. And finally, just people who look good. That's a very valuable thing to have for the Toreador. The press...
Then I wonder if Alcibiades is from ancient Greece, was a Toreador, considering that he was stated to have just been so incredibly attractive that people just agree with him. He would just say that he should lead a naval expedition, for example, and people just agree because of how handsome he was. It's actually, think about it. That makes too much sense. He would definitely be a Toreador, or maybe a Ventrue.
The process of initiation into the clan can be quite nice. You get all this love and attention from this powerful old being, and you have all your old and new incredible needs taken care of. Some might say you are being love-bombed and thus ultimately become highly dependent on your sire. And with how particular Toreador can be and how easily bored they can get, you might just be dropped by the sidelines for a single misstep, or just because some new fascination entered their lives. The clan has access to the disciplines Auspex, which are highly sharpened senses, Celerity, which is super speed, and Presence, which, like with the Ventrue, is the great alluring charisma. And yes, I will be repeating what each of these mean, just so you can learn them. The Toreador clanbane is their aesthetic
So they're very capricious then, in having their flights of fancy, which makes sense actually, since you mentioned how their sparks tend to come and go, just like inspiration.
Fixations, as they are so incredibly obsessed with aesthetics that they cannot stand not being surrounded by things that satisfy their own personal beauty standards. This doesn't need to be like the objective high art. There can also be people who feel comfortable in like a trash can Oscar the Grouch kind of milieu, and they...
This is actually making me imagine some Toreador magpie going around stealing works of art to make some vampire your bird nest.
Would feel very irritated in like a high society restaurant. It used to be in older editions they would just get absolutely transfixed with something beautiful that they would see, but I reckon they changed this because a few too many Toreador got transfixed with the beauty of the sunrise. This is represented in the newest edition, Vampire 5, with their compulsion, which is obsession, by which they really become hyperfixated on some particular thing, be it a person, a hobby, could be a particular song that they just have stuck in their head, and they're thinking about this thing all of the time and they just cannot get it out. So basically all Toreador have OCD, ADHD, and borderline personality disorder. The Toreador antediluvian.
I was about to say that reminds me of a friend I have who has ADHD.
Is Arakel, also known as Ishtar, the most beautiful woman who ever lived or unlived or ever will live or unlive, from the first city where she danced with bulls.
You know, the fact that she's depicted with these avian features like wings and talons, it's making that Toreador magpie image even stronger.
Some claim she is actually the oldest of the antediluvians, and even others claim that she is the twin sister of the antediluvian Malkav. Some notable Toreador include Rafael de Corazon, probably the most well-known of the co-founders of the Camarilla, Catherine of Montpellier, a historian and probably the most influential cultural trendsetter of the Vampiric Society of continental Europe, and Melinda Galbraith, who was actually the leader of the Sabbat for a while, even though she was pretending to be of a different clan. The secretive and conniving clan Tremere, also known as the Warlocks or the Pyramid, represents the kind of vampire what can do magic. Even though they are
yes, the wizards who stole vampirism and have so many pyramids, it's gonna get downright geezing in here.
One of the most powerful clans in the Camarilla and everyone needs to deal with them, nobody really trusts them. And this isn't just because they can do fucking magic, but also because they kind of are a very young clan and stole their vampiric heritage. The kind of people that the Tremere embrace vary a lot because they have this whole complicated process of asking various people for permission so that the leadership of the clan can determine who might be useful to the clan in the near future. They do have a tendency to embrace intellectuals, especially the kind of intellectual that has a little bit of a fascination with the occult. But probably the most important trait to have is an inborn tendency to accept authority, because the Tremere are very authoritarian. Perhaps because they are not particularly old, they are the most explicitly organized of all of the clans, and they have a very strict chain of command, the Pyramid, as mentioned before, obedience to which was not so long ago enforced through the practice of blood bonding. That whole command structure has sort of deteriorated a little bit after the Second Inquisition destroyed the clan's headquarters in Vienna, but a lot of chronicles still play it the old-fashioned way. The clan has access to the disciplines Auspex, which is highly sharpened senses, Dominate, which is mind control, and Blood Sorcery, which in older editions was known by the much cooler term Thaumaturgy. Kinda self-explanatory, but also not, because it's a very broad subject matter. This makes them ideal for perceiving magic, doing magic, and also ruling with an iron fist. The Tremere clanbane used to be that they...
And if I remember correctly, blood magic isn't real magic, as in they've lost the ability to do actual magic the way that mages do it, like being able to just alter reality in various ways. Because apparently the whole thing of once you become a vampire, you lose your connection with your avatar and all that stuff.
They could be very easily bloodbound, aka made obedient to other vampires, but now with the shattering of the pyramid, it's actually become the inverse of that, in that they cannot bloodbind other kindred, which of course gives a huge blow to their authoritarian structure. Their particular compulsion is called perfectionism, and it's just this overwhelming need to get this thing just perfectly right, and nothing short of an absolutely stellar performance will set their minds right again. Now the thing about...
So that sounds like the OCD that well, the OCD that I have in playing strategy games, that perfection thing. And well, since no one here has seen me play strategy games, that involves spacing things apart in even numbered multiples. So, for example, using StarCraft as an example, putting at least 2 tiles between buildings. I don't know. It just bothers me if they're not spaced by an even numbered number of tiles.
About the Tremere Antediluvian is that he is Saulot, who is also known as the vampire who actually is kind of a good guy. And he had a whole clan of his own, which is now hunted pretty much completely to extinction. But the founder of Clan Tremere was actually Tremere, a very powerful mage who found a ritual to turn himself into a vampire, and then proceeded to diablerize Saulot, which means drinking his heart blood to consume his soul in order to elevate his own power and legitimize his clan. Now, funny thing is, the goal he had was to become vampires without losing access to the magic.
Oh yeah, because if I remember correctly, vampires are not affected by paradox. So if they could keep their magic abilities and become vampires, then pretty much unlimited power, really.
Which is not what happened at all. They did lose their magic, all of them, big time. Which was a problem because that's the one thing that they wanted to have them set apart. Which led to the very interesting current situation where the Banu Hakim are going, hang on a second, right there, this is the thing that you do with the magic, that's just our blood magic with the serial numbers filed off. Some notable Tremere include John Dee, who was a historical, actual, real-world figure that existed in the real world, but he, was...
So it's just you can copy my homework, but make sure it looks different.
Wasn't a vampire, and is the current leader of all Tremere in the British Isles. Aisling Sturbridge, who is very young, but nonetheless a very powerful regent of the Chantry of New York. And Sri Sansa, who is notable to me personally because he fucked a lot, and I think that's cool. The passionate and free-spirited clan Brujah, also known as the Zealots or the Learned Clan, represents the classic punk rock archetype of vampire.
It just occurs to me actually that the Brujah symbol and the symbol that's often used for anarchism is also quite similar to the vault symbol from Borderlands.
Upon a time, some might have called them a patrician clan of the Camarilla as well, but they would have vehemently fought against that definition because they identify with the proletariat, with the oppressed masses yearning for liberation. And the Brujah are right there with them, to challenge authority, to fight the good fight. Brujah don't really have a lot of rules about who they embrace, though it usually tends to be people of oppressed groups, or even more frequently, agents who are trying to change the status quo, usually from counterculture scenes, or let's say certain groups that would do certain ops in order to achieve certain political goals. So essentially middle-class kids who don't need to hold down 3 jobs to pay the bills and thus have the time to do high-commitment activism. Now, while they are pretty cool, a lot of players like to romanticize them away from the fact that they are just hardcore ideologues who enjoy revolution for the sake of breaking shit. Many don't even believe in anything for the sake of believing it, they just believe in it because it is different than what they perceive to be the status quo. As such, you will find a lot of hardcore tankies, Nazis, Khmer Rouge enthusiasts, and people who post about politics on Twitter among the ranks of the Brujah. They're also well known for giving little to no guidance to their childer. Very often they don't even know who their sire is or what even is going on with them, and so they die pretty quickly. Because of course helping a youngling navigate the complex intricacies of the night in vampiric society is a huge responsibility, and Brujah will avoid that kind of thing like the plague. Frankly, I respect that. The clan has
So no responsibility. You missed me with that. Although I will say, the kind of mindset that Brujah have, it sounds like something that Zinj could get behind.
Access to the disciplines celerity, which is super speed, potence, which is super strength, and presence, which is alluring charisma, making them very intuitively well-rounded. Their powers are not...
You know, those first two combined explains a lot about the beatdown that Shitbeard gave Marcus in Hunt of the Parenting.
Not some weird stuff, they're just human abilities driven to a great extreme. All of this also makes them extremely dangerous opponents in combat. The Brujah clan bane is their violent temper. They just have a big problem keeping the unbridled rage of their inner beast at bay. They are much more likely to frenzy than any other clan. In terms of compulsion, they feel strongly drawn to rebellion, needing to piss in the face of the person that they perceive to be in charge, or in some other way transgress against what would be the orderly way of doing things in this situation. The Brujah Antediluvian was...
So if, say, someone wanted to make an affront to God by making, I don't know, a spider with snakes for legs, you know, bonus points. Give it the wings of a wasp, make it fly.
Was Troil the Elder, an extremely calm and dispassionate guy who got diablerized by his child, Troil the Younger, whose unbridled burning passion then became the bane of their clan as punishment for their transgression against their sire. Some notable Brujah include Theobar.
Ah, yes. But the first of a running theme, given what I've heard about some of the antediluvians and their usurpers and how it's affected the entire clan.
Who is kind of responsible for them officially leaving the Camarilla and mainly aligning themselves with the Anarch movement now. Smiling Jack Drake, a pirate in life.
Wait, is that the guy who we meet in Vampire the Masquerade, It Bloodlines?
From that golden age of piracy, who later became a very influential figure in the Californian Anarch Free State, and Tyler, who was one of the primary leaders of the Anarch Revolt. The enigmatic and mutated clan Nosferatu, also known as the Sewer Rats or the Clan of the Hidden, represents the hideously misshapen Count Orlok type vampire. Now, even though you will definitely recognize a Nosferatu as being a Nosferatu when you see one, they are nonetheless masters of espionage, and you should always assume that there is a Nosferatu in the room with you right now. Even though
or a Nosferatu spy rat.
They're looked down upon by polite vampire society, their abilities are nonetheless highly valued and sought after by the Camarilla. The Nosferatu embrace from two groups of people who could not be more distinct. On one hand, you have extreme social outcasts, such as homeless people or drug addicts. But they also, much like the Toreador, like to embrace exceptionally beautiful people. Unlike the Toreador, they do this as a punishment for their arrogance and cruelty to the people who are less privileged than them. So becoming a Nosferatu of all the kindred world is probably the first choice of few people. Their status as outcasts does give them a sort of increased cohesion within the clan, and they tend to be actually rather kind to each other. In their parallel society of the vast, sprawling underworlds of every city in the world, clan counts for more than sect. So you have cordial relations between Nosferatu of the Camarilla, the Sabbat, and Anarchs. The clan has access to the disciplines Animalism, which is control over animals, Obfuscate, which allows them to become undetectable, and Potence, which is super strength, making
the juggling dumpsters.
Making them not only perfect spy masters, but also dangerous ambush predators. The Nosferatu clan bane is that they're ugly as shit. That's it. That is the Bane. Right, okay, so the reason this is the case is because when they turn into vampires, they undergo a transformation, extremely painful, by the way, that completely changes the way that they look. And many of them even end up being unable to exist even as a vampire, because that is how far they have mutated. Some are even more hideous than the average Nosferatu. A very small select group is not quite as disgusting, but any Nosferatu, the second you see them, you will immediately know this is not a human, but some form of horrible monster, making it rather difficult for them to uphold the Masquerade. The clan compulsion is cryptophilia, which is an intense need to know secret information that very few people are privy to.
I can see where them being spy masters just fits then.
This is probably also one of the driving forces behind why they seem to know everything. The Nosferatu antediluvian is Absimiliad, a massive asshole psychopath piece of shit who was also incredibly handsome, and as such was punished for his appearance to reflect the appearance of his soul. He hates all his spawn and seeks to exterminate them, but of course, with the Nosferatu being a Camarilla clan, they mostly don't even know he exists. Some prominent Nosferatu include Zelios, a genius architect and stonecutter who constructs elaborate labyrinths for reasons that only he quite understands. Baba Yaga, who is believed by some to be the progenitor of all modern members of the clan because she was the only one of Absimilian's childer who ended up procreating. And Celebros, who for a while was the Camarilla Prince of New York City. The wild and independent clan Gangrel, also known as the Outlanders or the Clan of the Beast, is the archetypal country vampire that lives in the wilderness and is really more animal than person. Vampires are generally city people. They prefer to not be in the wilderness, where there is little in the way of consistent shelter and a lot in the way of dangerous shit. This is not true for the Gangrel, who even when...
And also, I imagine that your chance of running into, say, maybe a werewolf or a were-alligator, or just any other were creature is higher when you're out in the wilderness.
When they are in cities, prefer to stick to the parks and outskirts. They also like to travel a lot, and they are the only clan that is even somewhat respected by the werewolves. They prefer to embrace people who are unafraid and have a will to survive. This often happens like pretty spur of the moment when a victim vehemently resists feeding, which is actually difficult because getting fed on by a vampire apparently feels very, very nice. But they will also sometimes pick out people that they notice are unafraid of moving through the wilderness at night, and so they will stalk and observe them, sometimes over a period of several months, before embracing them if they find them worthy. Very few Gangrel will ask you if you want to become a vampire, and actually, if you are a Gangrel and you had the choice of becoming a vampire and took it, people are gonna look down on you in the clan. That's kind of something that they think is weak. The clan has access to the disciplines animalism.
So you gotta prove yourself, and if you were asked and just handed it, then you didn't earn it. Then is how they'd see it, I assume.
Which gives them control over animals, fortitude, which is supernatural toughness, and protean, which gives them the ability to gain animal features or even transform fully into animals. The Gangrel clan Bane...
So that explains why Ape had those claws.
...is that they gain bestial features when they frenzy. So this might be like bat ears that then appear, or they have like a strong dog stench. It used to be they would then have this feature forever, but they changed this in Vampire 5 because I guess they realized that if you have a frenzy once, like early on in the game, which will most definitely happen to you at some point, and you have a little bit of bad luck, you become just a walking masquerade violation without the benefit of having obfuscate as a clan discipline like the Nosferatu do. So now those features go away after a while. The clan compulsion is feral impulses, which every once in a while will really drive the Gangrel to resolve a dispute through violence, the purest actual form of showing who is strongest and fittest and best to survive, and not this words bullshit, because they will have a pretty hard time talking. The Gangrel antediluvian is Enoya, and it's very difficult to ascertain any information about her because all the lore about Enoya is passed through Gangrel lines via oral storytelling, and so there's a million different versions.
Ah, so oral traditions, just like many peoples, actually.
Of Enoya. She may have been raised by wolves. That's one thing that may have happened. Some notable Gangrel include Cuthbert Beckett, a very notable scholar and archaeologist looking into the true origins of vampire kind. Odin the All-High, who is, yes, indeed, that particular Odin, though he isn't originally Scandinavian, he just ended up there. And Xavier, who was a very powerful Justicar of the Camarilla before...
Ah, and he has little pointy bat ears.
Officially declaring that his clan was now going to leave the Camarilla and join the Anarch movement. The ethereal and neurotic clan Malkavian, also known as the Cassandras or the Clan of the Moon, represents the sort of telepathic, psychic type vampire, though they do still drink blood. The Malkavians
They're also, quite loony.
are a funny little group because they have changed a lot over the years of the game's existence. They used to be just straight up crazy people. There was sometimes an attempt at doing a serious exploration of mental health, but of course, as the topic in general has moved more into the space of public acceptance, it's become a bit more labor-intensive to actually deal with it properly. And personally, I think Vampire the Masquerade does a very good job with that. Basically, they're all in tune with this psychic network that they all share, and through which they have a very loose telepathic connection to each other. But of course, every node in that network has their own little particular idiosyncrasies that distorts the view of the whole. They're an extremely diverse clan in whom they embrace because it tends to be mental oddballs, and there's a lot of different ways in which you can be a mental oddball, but there does seem to
So, say, being neurodivergent, maybe?
be a certain, not preference, but just a statistically higher likelihood of them embracing intellectuals because they tend to be celebrated more for their oddballness and so hide it less. The clan has access to the disciplines Auspex, which is highly sharpened senses, Dominate, which is mind control, and Obfuscate, which allows them to become undetectable. They used to have a discipline called Dementation, which is now an amalgam power of Dominate and Obfuscate, which once again I'm not particularly happy with, but basically what it does is it makes other people go crazy. The Malkavian clan bane is their fractured perspective. They all have some wild and often destructive mental health disorder that they had a sort of predilection for during their life, even if there it never manifested. And no amount of therapy can help them with it. The clan compulsion is their propensity for delusion, because though they are connected to this magical, powerful network that can give them very meaningful visions of things that might happen in the future and things that are happening right now, they also can just as likely receive just complete bullshit streams of thought that will deeply upset their frame of mind. Trust me.
So just the most insane random bullshit will just come to their minds, which... Well, that answers a few questions then.
I have quite a few schizophrenia symptoms myself. I know what I'm talking about. The Malkavian antediluvian is called Malkav, and some people think that he is physically, or rather non-physically, the actual telepathic network that connects all Malkavians. As such, even though they're a Camarilla clan, the Malkavians are not as religious in their denial of their antediluvian, but then they are Malkavians, so nobody listens to them anyway, and the Camarilla doesn't really care. Some notable Malkavians include Anatole, who has, for the past couple centuries, been predicting the end of the world, and it turns out that he actually is correct. Therese Vorman, who is the Anarch Baron of Santa Monica, and who appeared in the video game Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. And none other than Aleister Crowley himself, who, believe it or not, is also the sire of Jekyll and Hyde. The ruthless...
Oh. honestly, like with the whole like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, I was like I honestly would have thought that that given the whole well actually yeah, it does make sense to be a Malkavian. For a second there I was thinking maybe Gangrel, but that's more of a physical transformation than a personality change that I was thinking of at first. Because a lot of different things where they do the whole Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, they also have him change physically.
And Darwinistic clan Lasombra, also known as the Keepers or the Night Clan, represent the archetypal type of vampire that is a shadow being. I don't know that that's a thing that exists, but it is cool and it fits thematically. A good way of describing the Lasombra is that they're the Ventrue of the Sabbat. They are extremely capable of constructing and navigating complex social structures, so they run the administrative and down-to-earth side of the anti-Camarilla sect. And they are very selective in their embraces. You have to be a perfect match for what your sire is looking for, and they will then completely and utterly annihilate your livelihood over the course of years in order to test the unbreakability of your drive and willpower. If at the end of all that you're still focused, grinding, trying to secure the bag, they will reveal themselves to you. Interestingly, a lot of Lasombra are sailors. They're for some reason very closely associated with the sea, which I don't know how that fits, but I like it. And also the
Well, that's an interesting choice.
Catholic Church and religious institutions in general, but specifically the Catholic Church, the Lasombra are deeply embedded in, and this is just another way in which they're sort of like an evil counterpart to the Ventrue, even though, I mean, the Ventrue are already kind of fucking evil, in that they will use anything to climb the social order. The clan has access to the disciplines Dominate, which is mind control, Oblivion, which used to be called Obtenebration and was their ability to control the shadows, and you'll understand later why I'm so very angry about this, and Potence, which is super strength. The clan bane is actually something very classic in that they don't cast proper reflections, not even on like digital cameras, though you probably will be able to identify them as themselves. The whole thing is going to be just busy with like shadowy artifacts and transparency issues, to the point where if you're unlucky, it might even be a Masquerade violation. This has led to the ironic situation that the clan, which utterly despises the idea of humans having any sort of position or value within vampire society, are dependent on them for just basic things like telling them how they look and having them pick out good outfits. The common compulsion that their beast drives them to is ruthlessness.
You know, that is very fitting again. Like that is some karma right there.
They need to win. They need to achieve this goal, and they will do anything, sacrifice anyone to achieve that. Failure is not an option. The Lasombra antediluvian went by many names, so people just tend to call him Lasombra. Now, the funny thing about Lasombra is that even though the Brujah would really like to claim this honor for themselves, they are actually the ones who kicked off the Anarch Revolt by diablerizing their antediluvian. He was the first antediluvian diablerized after the destruction of the first city, which is like so far in the past that the overwhelming majority of people don't even know that that was a thing, and he was diablerized by the youngest of his childer, Gratiano de Veronese. Some notable Sabbat include Lucita de Aragon, who was a Spanish princess and later became a very, very powerful archbishop in the Sabbat, Zadkiel ben Aron, one of the absolute grandmasters of obtenebration, and Giangaleazzo Visconti, who, this is my favorite Vampire the Masquerade story. Basically, this guy, he got bored with the Sabbat because it's a very violent and direct kind of place. So what he did is he took all the Sabbat hardliners in his city, Milan, and he switched from Sabbat Archbishop to being a Camarilla Prince by just killing all of them. And the reason for this is that he found the intrigue and complicated politics of the Camarilla more interesting. The stately and indifferent clan
And since this video is an hour long in total, I think I'll pause here and continue it in a part 2. I hope you've all been enjoying watching with me. And if you did, I'd appreciate if you like, comment, and subscribe. Definitely check out Burger's channel if you're not doing so already. But until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day today. Ta-ta!